Following on then, we have in Lightwave VPR, which is Viewport Renderer. I'm sure many of you are probably familiar, but we'll just pick up a few details for the uninitiated, or in case there might be something about it that you have missed. Pretty straightforward to turn on. You just go to your different shading modes here, and you can switch to VPR, and that starts rendering your scene right here in the viewport. And the first thing about VPR is that this is the exact same renderer that is used when you push F9 to do a full regular render, right? It's absolutely identical in every way. The only thing that I will point out that you might notice, and one of the reasons I've chosen this object, is you can see that he's all broken up here in VPR and over here as rendered from the camera view. He is not. That is because with subdivision objects, you might well remember that you have a display subpatch level, which is the subpatch level that you see in OpenGL, and a render subpatch level. Yep. So VPR uses the GL, the display subpatch level. So that's why he's a little ugly there. If you change that, then bingo, VPR updates. Notice, of course, that VPR is just whatever is showing in your viewport. So here we're looking from the, perspective mode, so we can just roll around like this. That's the reason that F9 has come out with this view, because that is indeed our camera view, which we see here in VPR if we switch to the camera angle itself. What you will notice when you are looking from the camera view is that you will get these, letterbox bars either at the sides or the tops or whatever to fit the, frame size that you've got in your camera. Of course, the resolution will be different. At the minute, this camera's just set up basic at 640x480, I think it was, or 800, 600, one or the other. Obviously here, 640x480, obviously here in VPR, then you're getting whatever resolution your screen is, and it's filling up your screen as it is. So what is there really to know about VPR? Well, I mean, obviously it's, a quick way to jump in and start looking at your renders as you're working. So whilst you're surfacing or lighting or whatnot, you can, pretty much do it all interactively. You'll notice that now with the new renderer that we've got our buffer system, all of these different buffers are available to us directly here in VPR. So if we're wanting to look at different aspects like the, shadow buffer, then we can have a quick look at those in VPR as well. That's handy, but we'll discuss buffers more later on. There are a couple of options to take note of. First of all, draft mode, which is often on by default, I think. Normally turn that off. It turns down the quality of the VPR. So if you actually have draft mode on, you don't get the same render that you would get out of F9, because F9 doesn't have a draft mode. It's just meant to be a little bit quicker. And I mean, it doesn't seem to have made a big difference in many lights. It doesn't. The principal place where it makes a difference is if you're using GI, specifically interpolated GI. It just looks garbage. You can't trust a thing for how it looks with draft mode. Draft mode can be handy if you're wanting VPR to run a little faster, but I don't really see the point in bothering. It's up to you, though. I tend to keep it off. You'll notice there's this mouse refinement option, which you can turn on and off. And if you look at the noise, let's just jump there so as we get it. You see where I'm putting my mouse, then VPR is rendering this area first, so I can tell VPR where I want it to, update. So if there's a little bit of my render or surfacing that I'm trying to check out, then rather than having to wait for the whole thing to render, I can just start looking at certain bits of it and just make my adjustments interactively nice and easily like that. You can overlay the OpenGL view onto VPR if you want. That can be handy sometimes if you're wanting to be able to manipulate lights or cameras or objects and things of that nature. I see here I can see my camera in VPR. So you can effectively just be, interacting with your scene whilst the whole thing is just test rendering like that. You've got a little options panel over here from this little menu button for the VPR, where you can switch certain things, pixel smoothing, you can half the resolution, so it actually renders to half of whatever your screen resolution is. That can sometimes, if you're wanting a little snappier more interactive VPR, that can sometimes be better to use than draft mode. The render outside camera takes care of those bars. As you see here, we've still got the bars overlaid, but it still renders to full screen if you want. Volume shadows, that's basically if you're using volumetrics. Normalized display, which makes everything come down to a normalized brightness. Not really sure what the point of using that is, because you really want it to look like the F9. Frames per second rate that it'll try to keep to if you're, dragging the timeline about. VPR image options, you see the little save icon that's over here? That will save an image from VPR, so if you're wanting to save them off, you can just click that and it will use the image type as shown here and where the location for the file goes. You've got your color space, of course, setting here. Color space, this is the display color space, that's why it's set to sRGB, because of, sRGB monitor. That will set automatically, of course, when you use your color space option here. Add display, this allows you to add a little display breakout. It's 3D Vision Pro. This originally is for working with, like, if you've got a 3D screen, but what you can do is if you hit toggle window, then you get a little breakout window like this. So rather than having VPR running just in the viewport, you could switch that, of course, to shaded. This gives you a second viewport, as you will if you're wanting something on another monitor for showing elsewhere. And there we go, that's pretty much it. You can do preview, so if you've got something that's animated and you're wanting to do a make preview of it, that will go with VPR as well, no problem. So you can actually do effectively it's just like a test render in your viewport. Again, handy if you want to see how an animation is working out. That's where something like the half resolution would come in useful. Although another way to get quicker renders without using that is, of course, just to split your viewports down. So you could switch to something like a quad, and of course VPR would then render quicker because, of course, being a smaller display, this is a smaller resolution. And obviously the lower the resolution, the faster it renders. So if you're wanting to do a preview like that, then you can. Note, of course, that the little camera icon that is selected in the viewport, that is the viewport that will be previewed. So if we went to make preview, and we'll just do a quick, you see viewport camera view selected there, hit OK, and we can see that's starting to render up just a little animated render preview there with VPR. That's enough waiting for that. Give it a play. There you go. Get a little animated preview like that. So that's VPR, what it does. Those are the options for it. Very quick, simple thing. And obviously very useful when you're messing around with your surfaces and lighting, trying to get the perfect render out of Lightwave.